Okay, peace and blessings, family. Happy Friday evening. I'm signing on tonight because I just seen Eddie Murphy's new Netflix. Dolomite is my name, um, and I felt like I needed to do a video and put something together real quick. I don't know about y'all, but I really did grow up watching a lot of black, what they call exploitation films, and it totally impacted my life. Um, and you know, I really liked the film, and let me tell you why. I'm gonna go into a few little things, but I really like this film. I have seen Dolomite a few times. I've seen a few of his films actually, but I remember seeing it in the 80s. I was born in 1971. So in the 80s, when the crack era was raging, I was a kid who watched a lot of black movies from the 70s. So I'm very much heavily influenced by the 70s, and particularly black film. So I grew up watching everything. I became inspired um, watching these black films, and one of the it's a couple of reoccurring themes. But one of them I got when I would watch these movies was seeing black folks in unity, seeing camaraderie when they would say sister and brother in the movies, or there was a sense of, even though some of them could maybe be seen as negative because they had pimps and hoes in it or whatever. But a lot of them, it empowered me. I'm not going to lie. Like, I seen people standing up for their community. You know, it was a lot of things standing up to the man, even though there was a lot of screwing the man's woman. But I mean, I kind of didn't really, I'll get into that later, but there was something about these black 70 films that I really liked. I know I'm not the only one who grew up with them. But this film, Dolomite is My Name, gave me a different lens at, yeah, I really did enjoy them. It gave me a different lens at him. I wasn't really into it, because to me, he's like a Millie Jackson, you know, kind of like he cuss a lot, but he also like does the dozens. He does these long, what we used to call caps, when you say a whole bunch of stuff. You big jack-legged, blah, 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 blah. He does that a lot, but also because he's very Southern. So I guess he's from Arkansas. So it's really long, but also the timing, it would be so funny. So what I did before watching Dolomite is My Name, I went and I watched Dolomite again. I hadn't seen Dolomite in years. I watched it again, and then I watched the film with Eddie Murphy. I thought Eddie Murphy did a really good job. But also, I gotta be honest, I felt like when I was watching Eddie Murphy, because he kind of sometimes seems the same to me in a lot of his films, I'm just being honest. But I also seen Rudy Ray Moore in Eddie Murphy's work through the years. I could tell that he was totally influenced by this gentleman. What I really appreciated about Dolomite and Rudy Ray Moore, the story, My Name is Dolomite, was like how he came to be, is being the underdog and not being able to fit into a stereotype, which I think that's what we're in right now in this country. Even in the black world, there is a stereotype. And so there's a scene in the movie where he feels like oh God, I'm gonna check in. There's a theme in the movie where he goes into international films, and if you ever watched a lot of black exploitation films, you would see a lot of them were made at international. And basically, they said we want people like Jim Brown and Fred Williamson, like those kind of people were said to be athlete, chiseled men. And then, because they're talking about a man, but I also remember watching those films in the 70s. You had to be slim and had like some kind of exotic look to you, or, you know. So, you know, he had to not just come up against the man, as they were called in the day, but he had to also come up against his own people who didn't think his brand of film couldn't be in that diversity that black folks do not sometimes represent for themselves. And so he had to go and clear his own way. So one of the things that was reminiscent of him doing that made me think of a lot of the early years of the hip hop movement, where people had to make their tapes and stuff and press it themselves and sell it themselves. So here this man is in the 70s got wisdom from something we thought was not valuable. So when he went back to those homeless kind of old men in the alley, some people would say they were bums or whatever, he realized that they had something, and then he took those jokes and that information, and then he was able to reinvent himself. And he also made himself, because one of the things in the movie is like he thought his life was washed up, and then he reinvented himself. And then that's how he came up with Dolomite. I love that he brought the black woman along because she was feeling some kind of way. And her scene, how she came on, to me was hilarious. Because she knocked this man out so hard he spun around. Me and my sister rewinded that about 3-4 times when we was laughing so hard. But, even with her, he came and brought her. So there's a scene in the movie, and I so related to this scene. Let me just tell you. I so related to this thing, a scene when she said to him, "Thank you for putting someone who looked like me on the film. I'm a real woman. I may not be the sexiest woman by whatever standard that is, but I am a real woman. And I never get to see a lot of real looking black women on TV. And I'm not talking about from white people, I'm talking about even black directors. Like, they don't always take a chance. We'll talk about the man, but we don't even take a chance. So I think one of the things I would hope people would walk away with after seeing this film, I hope they will walk away with, if you have a dream or something you want to do, just go on out there and try it. Like, your life is never really washed up. That's the theme I got from it. I thoroughly enjoyed the movie. I'm probably going to watch it again because there were some parts in it that made me laugh. But there were so many messages in there. And so even though I like the way he took his whole community along, trying to make something. And maybe, I think that's another thing. Maybe what he was trying to do didn't fit into, it didn't really fit into, it did not fit into what we think black people should look like or be. When you went to the black film director and the film director said, we're going to do Cornbread, Earl and Me. We're getting away from this type of movie. It's like, I think we could do those kind of movies, but we could also still do the movies he want to do, because black folks are just as diverse as any other group. So even though, I'm not going to front, even the first time I seen Sweetback Badass Song, I'm not trying to clown. Some people think it was cinematic genius. I have some friends who so loved that movie. I personally didn't like it, but I did watch it. As a matter of fact, I think I even bought the movie on VHS. This is long ago, and I actually gave it to somebody. So I was like, yeah, because I have a black film library. I even got it. Now I have it back in my library, but I remember giving it away the first time. I was like, what the hell is this? But to some people, that film spoke to them. Like, he represented, and my thing is like, he didn't represent nothing I want to see, but that didn't mean he did not have the right, because I do love The Watermelon Man. So the same man that directed Sweetback Badass Song directed The Watermelon Man, which I thought was totally genius. It's a classic. You can watch it right now and you probably fall out to the floor laughing, because The Watermelon Man is like, we know that. But I did not like Sweetback Badass Song. So, but, hell, somebody liked it, and I felt like he had the right to make it. And I'm glad he didn't follow a lot of the stereotypical stuff. And one of the things with me, I kind of like that. I'm not for the stereotypical, like the everyday kind of thing we go for. I like it when we switch it up and, try other things and bring other people into the fold, or different ideas or cultures and things like that. I absolutely love it. So it's a great film, y'all. It's a great film, but it made me think of that. I think about a lot of the films. I grew up watching a lot of films. We create our own. We definitely did. I think the other thing, because when you watch a film, you become very reminiscent of the period, and that's what happens for me. So I thought about, Superfly. I thought about Trouble Man. I thought about Cleopatra Jones. I could go down a list of films that I watch. I watched Coffee, with Pam Grier, Friday Foster, Sheba Baby. I could just go down a list. Blackula, the second Blackula with Pam Grier in it. There's so many black films. Black Superman, Akbar, Black Superman, Dr. Black and Mr. Hyde, Smooth Velvet, Bucktown, Shaft, Like there's so many black films in the 70s. But the theme I think I remember the most, I remember when I would watch these movies, I would watch these movies, and what I would notice is that it was like it was about a come up, but it was like a community come up when I would watch a lot of these black films from the 70s. It was like, you know, we were trying to live our best and have better housing and, you know, see each other as sisters and brothers. I love it when we talk to each other like that and say, hey sis, hey brother, right on. Like there is like an awakening, like a different kind of awakening. And I think because I'm a child that was born into that era, that's something that resonates with me. So I love saying sister and brother, and you know, I grew up with black people did that, and it was so beautiful. Like, man, I long for those days. I used to wish when I was a kid that when I grow up, I'm gonna do just what they was doing. That's the stuff I would say. Oh, when I get older, I'm gonna be doing it, even if you had to go to the corner bar, you know, and say go get somebody you know, ran and you know, like you had to go in there and get somebody at the bar. There was a level of respect. Like, you know, it wasn't as scary. So your niece is here, you know, walking you home, whatever it is. There was something very unifying in the 70s. Even the black love looked very different in the 70 films. Now, I'll admit, some of that stuff was bullshit, but for the most part, it just seemed like the love factor there in the 70s, I could really get with that, you know. So, and so when I watched Dolomite, that really just, I don't know, that just, the film itself spoke to me. And maybe it's because he was coming from being the underdog. And the beauty of it is sometimes you can't wait for the gatekeepers to allow you to come in the gate. You have to just take your chance and let the people support you. You don't have to wait for the gatekeepers. And I love when he figured that out. Like each time there was a roadblock, he was like, hell, I guess I gotta make my own albums. Hell, I guess I gotta go make my own movies. Like, I love that he wasn't afraid to find his own way. I think that was one of the brilliant things I really liked about this movie, My Name is Dolomite. It doesn't even matter if you were a fan of Ruby Ray Moore. It was just the fact that he just took a chance. He was the underdog. He took his people along with them. Yeah, they would be what some of us would call country, but God damn it, all of us came from the country. If you were a descendant of enslaved people, your ass came out of the South somewhere. So you don't have to act like that ain't where you come from. That is where you come from, and the core and the root of you. And so there was something about that film, him standing and him being, the man said he was portly, portly or something like that, which meant that he was overweight. But he was like, shit, I'm gonna bet on my own fat ass. Like, I feel like at some point, screw those images that people put up. That don't have to be you. I like that he had a full figured, like a real black woman in there with some depth to her. But I thought she was also very beautiful in the film. I did. But I feel like there's so many themes in there. And I used to always say the last time I seen a real looking black woman on TV was on What's Happening. Because I ain't never seen a Mabel King looking person since. Because, again, that's the 70s. Even when they wrote her in, her ex-husband, who was, oh my God, this actor I love so much. He played in Cool Breeze. He is so fine. He's an ancestor now. And he has a beautiful name. I cannot remember it. What is his name? I can't remember his name. But he played in Cool Breeze. And I just thought he was the finest man I had ever seen in my life. But again, he was in there, What's Happening. And I like the way that they end up developing their relationship. There's something very special about the 70s black cinema. I'll be honest, when the 80s came, I kind of tuned out because I think we started like doing bullshit for me. I did like some of a very few films in the 80s I liked. Very few. And then in the 90s, there's a couple. It just kind of got kind of plasticky for me. But it was something about those 70s, and I'm going to even say early 80s, because they had the Gentle Gents. I like that. But I think that was a made-for-TV movie, but there was something about when they wrote movies in that time, it related to a lot of stuff, Mom Mabel is awful. Oh, I love Mom Mabel. I loved her in when she was in Baltimore, Maryland. Oh, Amazing Grace. Amazing Grace. Loved her in the My sister Renee, blessed Mary, she loved that film. Definitely Mom Mabel is, but look what time she's from though. Look what time she's from. So for me, I agree with you, but I just feel like, for me, when I think of films from the 70s, when I look at films from the 70s, they spoke to me, and I think it has a lot to do with who I am right now. You know, when I think about black folks, for some people it's kind of hard, you know. When they think about black folks, they only can know what they have right now. But for me, I'm wired all the way to the womb through my mom. So I remember in the 70s what it was like to wake up on a hot summer morning, and we know for lunch we're going to have those little city lunches. I'm from Philly, so you would get like an apple, a sandwich, and a juice box or something for lunch in the summertime in the 70s. I remember jumping rope in the street. I remember seeing people come down the block, and when they would speak to you, they would say, "Hey, little sister," you know, "Hey, brother." You felt like when you seen another black person, you felt safe. You know, you didn't feel like you had to be afraid of them. This is what I remember about the 70s. You know, and when I would look at films, you know, even, you know, even if women or men had their nightlife, it didn't cross over through what I can see. You know, if my mother and father went out, say to somebody's party or whatever, they had 6 children, you know, our neighbors looked out after us. If we supposed to be in the house at a certain time, they look out there, y'all, hey, y'all, it's this time. Okay, we're going in the house, y'all. You know, there was like such a community. And I like to call that era the pre-crack era. It was right before crack showed up. But in the same time, black folks were embracing their Africanness, like their natural hair and dashikis, and, you know, people playing the drums and the bongos and the, you know, like I remember my uncle Jewel, you know, playing the bongos and just like the rhythm and his dashikis and, you know, the afro and the sideburns and, you know, all of those things meant something to me. It was a part of our culture. And so when I seen that film, My Name is Dolomite, Dolomite is my name, I'm sorry. It just took me all the way back, you know, to that time period. You know, I watch a lot of films from the 70s because they gave me such lessons. So even when the crazy 80s came, when people was kind of out there, it was those films that kept me company in the 80s, where we could not play outside a lot. Where, you know, it was all about protecting, you know, your children. I remember being able to watch those films on VHS, if you will. I remember watching Cleopatra Jones, and then Cleopatra Jones in the Temple of Gold, or in the Gold Casino, or something like that. I can't remember. I remember watching Shaft in Africa. You know, I remember discovering, it was called The Color of Love, but, you know, it had been renamed. The original name was Shango. You know, I remember discovering all of these black films and from the 70s and the 80s, particularly in the mid and late 80s, and how it shaped me. How those films kept me company. How those films also helped me to see some of the things that were happening in the time. And so what it did for me, even when I watched Trouble Man, I mean, I like Trouble Man. I like the way that you could count on him to help you, even though he was like I guess he was an investigator or a number runner, but he ran a pool hall. He was a private investigator, so he had $500 suits. I guess that was a big deal in 1970s. But he still took care of family. He took care of his community. There was some kind of community theme to these black films. I don't know about y'all. I don't know how many of y'all actually grew up watching films from the 70s. I still watch a lot of them. I'm still introducing them to young folks. I remember I told some of my girls in college to watch The Watermelon Man. And one girl said it was like I said it, and when she went home and found that her dad sat and watched it. I love the movie, Brother Earl. I loved the movie. And I'm not even one of those fans. I'm not like a Millie Jackson kind of let's cuss up a storm fan. I'm not one of those. But I have to be honest, I think there was some key themes in there for all of us. I think some of those themes in My Name is Dolomite is carve out your own way. Like, don't worry about fitting into people's modes, because the people will speak for you. The people showed up, you know, and bought his records. The people showed up and you know, supported the film. You know, he didn't have to wait on, you know, an ex-football player turned actor, no disrespect, to come and save his film. I think that's a lesson to us today. Stop recasting people. Go with the original people. You don't have to have people who look like white people to get white people to see it. I think white people like authenticity. I don't think white people like carbons. Because every time I meet a white person, they always have the real shit. They don't be having generic shit. It's like they want the Africa and bought the goddamn ass in Africa. They didn't go get it out the raw store. You know, we be thinking if we, you know, so I feel like that was a reoccurring theme in there. And I like the way in the film they showed us how he worked through his fear. Like he thought like, I can't do this sex scene, you know, because I got a stomach. And they said, well, if we make that shit funny, and it made him comfortable, and it ended up being like the funniest film. Now, one of the things that did shock me in this movie, I'm gonna have to be honest, was the brother director. This is, man, what's his name? I was gonna say his name is Dwayne Martin, but that ain't his name. I guess he spelled it, you know, some kind of, I don't know if it was French. I don't know what the hell it was. And this was funny. I've seen him in a lot of movies. I always just thought he was a god-awful actor. I'm not gonna front. He played in, he wasn't in Chuck Turner. What did I just see he was in? Oh God, he played in a lot of shit. That's all. He did play in Black Seas. He was a preacher, god awful preacher. I've never seen a preacher that awful in my life. So here he is trying to shit on Dolomite or Rudy Ray Moore and his cast of characters, but he went on to make way more money than he did. You know, so yeah, it's that was very interesting to see people who they really were. I just remember him playing in a lot of films, but he never had any real major roles in it. But, you know, here he is, had a really good chance. If he just believed in the brother, he could have been a part of that greatness. So when you say you're going to help somebody, when you say that, you got to show up like that. Because he really did miss a great opportunity. And I guess he never thought the brother would amount to anything. But here they are talking about him, and nobody, I can't even remember the man's first name. I know his last name is Martin is his last name, but I can't remember his first name. So it was just kind of interesting, just the way, you know. Of course, was Sandy Duncan out in the 70s? Anybody around the 70s? Because when our brother, who I think is hilarious, who definitely should play Richard Pryor, I think he's cast for that. Oh God, Mike Epps. When he told that woman, don't be shushing me, and then he called her Sandy Duncan, I damn near fell out laughing. Children stay in the child's place. We wasn't allowed to be around adults, but they were engaged in adult activities. That's real talk. I couldn't buy weed from no one. That's real talk. A man smack inside the bar. Right on. You're absolutely right. That's that time, though. And that's why I did say that was definitely before crack. Now that adults put drugs in children's hands, women sit and talk about, yes, so true, sex and offer. Ooh, lot. Yes, they do. I'm reading this brother's comments, brother Donald. That's real talk. I love when he was passing out. I don't know if you've seen Dolomite Is My Name, but I like when he was passing out his flyers and then he told the woman, yeah, come on down, but don't bring your children. Don't bring your children. I think that was important. I definitely think that was totally important. I say all of that to say, I think it is so important for us to look at those kind of films and to study the period. You know, there's some films from the 60s I like as well, but there is something about the 70s. I was telling my younger sister today, I said, even in the 70s, when black people danced, they danced together. They would all be on the same rhythm. There was something in the rhythm, in the music in the 70s that made everybody sway damn near the same way. Now, y'all know I ain't talking to myself. You put on a certain song and everybody's body you know, got that same movement, and I could hear it right now in my head. And even if they did a half cut on it, they still was like, if they was just doing it like this, and if they was to break it down, they would still end up being on the same beat. That's how together we were as black people. And we may not have had much, but what we had was a strong sense of unity, a strong sense of self as we were learning about ourselves. You know, seeing people embrace their natural hair. That always just, when I look at the pictures from the 70s, and there's one picture where you would see a black man, the black woman would be like these two big afros, but it was just so beautiful to see. So when I looked at that film, My Name is Dolomite, his relationship with the black woman, the big sister, and there wasn't no sexual relationship. It was more like, I feel you, my sister, and I got your back. I damn sure don't feel that right now today. We have people who make it, and you look at their crew, they don't have one goddamn real black looking woman in their whole thing. Like, they don't even know Big Mama. Like, I even like the fact that when he went to his aunt's house, who reminded me of another aunt, blessed memory, to ask her for the money, she's frying him up some pork chops. That was funny, or some pork steaks. I don't know what the hell it was. And, you know, he had to ask her for that money. But again, it was just unity, family. And when I see stuff like that, it makes me feel like we got to get back to that place with each other. And I also think maybe you have to go back and study. Go get Big Mama and them photo albums and start looking through there. Look at who they were when they were young. I found the picture of my dad. I was given a picture of my dad when he passed away last year on Christmas Eve. And my cousin sent me a picture of her mom, who was my dad's sister. So it's her, my dad, my mom's brother, and then my dad's sister, her husband. They were all very young. And I want to say they had to be like maybe in their late 20s. And I looked at my dad, and my dad had a little afro. Anybody know my dad? He always had a shaven head. He had hair in this picture because it's in the 1970s. And, you know, I think it was either in their late 20s or maybe early 30s. And I could look at him and see my brothers, and his smile, I could see myself and my siblings. And I thought to myself, wow, look how peaceful. Look, sometimes in the 70s, I tell people, you want to see what black people look like before crack hit? Look at the 70s. Go rent the Watch Stats. The Watch Stats, it was a concert that they gave in Los Angeles at the LA Coliseum. Look at those black folks in that movie. It's online. Sometimes you can see part of it on the YouTube. Look at what those black folks look like. That was the 70s. Even when Rufus was playing Break Down for Me, Break Down for You. When you looked at the audience, all the black folks was whatever dance they was doing, they were all on the same beat. I don't care if they was doing like this. It was all rhythmic. It was all the same beat. And I think that was something very magical about who we are. And when I looked at Dolomite, it was a great reminder to be yourself. To don't change for other people. Remember the rhythm in you that you know connects to other people. Don't worry about if you don't look a certain way. Don't worry about if you talk country or you use broken English. Don't worry about that. Because he totally changed the world, honestly. He opened up doors for people. He gave people a shot who would have never got a shot. Because maybe they was too country. Oh, thank you. You too, brother. Brother Donald, you too. But there's something about that, family. I tell people, study those 70s. I'm telling you. Just look at where we were. I always say that pre-crack era will help you to understand where we are right now. Right now. If you really want to know what happened to black folks, study that era. If you really want to know what happened to us, study that era. When you look at Dolomite, I would hope that y'all would maybe, you know, if you can. See, I feel like you got to watch at least Dolomite to understand the film. You know, because I was in like, oh my God. Oh, so I knew the scenes. Because I had just seen it like 2 nights because I was going to watch that before I knew the film coming out today. But it made me, and watching that, it just made me think the clothes, the vibrant colors, it just brought all of it back to me in the 70s. And what I remember the most about the 70s, when he was waking up when the phone was ringing, in my brain, in that moment, as I was sitting there in my living room, I thought about what it felt like to wake up in Philadelphia in the morning when the breeze hits you, because you know it's going to be a hot day. So you wake up in the morning, you just be like, wow, like it's cool right now. It's perfect right now. I watched it. I had that reminiscent in my mind when I watched it. You know, when I watched him, bringing his friends on the come up. I remember watching so many movies in the 70s where it's about helping people to come up, taking people with you. It wasn't about I, because I think the I happened in the crack era and then it just rolled on through. But there was something about the 60s and the 70s where it was a we thing. So when you looked on TV and you seen, I don't know, you seen the black person on TV, it did make you feel like, we on there. You know, when you went to the black movies and watched any of those films we talked about, especially when I seen Sissy Tyson, and Sissy Tyson backed her ass off. So when I would see Sissy Tyson, I would feel some kind of way because she was such a great actress. But it was something about going and seeing that big screen. I remember, this was in my home, because again in the 80s I watched all the black films. I remember watching A Warm December. I remember watching For the Love of Ivy and feeling some way about black love after I seen Sidney Poitier and Abbey Lincoln, the jazz artist. I remember seeing A Warm December again with Sidney Poitier. I cannot remember the sister's name, and just how beautiful it was. Those things shaped me. They impacted my psyche in such a way. So, if you haven't seen Dolomite Is My Name, Eddie Murphy as Rudy Ray Moore, please check it out. It's on Netflix. I just watched it. Totally impacted by it. I think it has great messages in there for us. The main one I took away from it, no matter where you come from, where you at, who you are, how you talk, how you walk, how you dress, what your vision is. Do it because you want to do it. Don't wait for the rest of us to say it's okay. If you got a team, run with your team. Run with your team. If you start moving, people just fall in line. But I think the message is, if you got a dream, follow it. You're never too old to recreate yourself. That's what I took away from it. It motivated me in that. Because sometimes as you get older and you're not standing in a spot that you want to stand in, this reminds you to keep pushing. It was funny this morning, I talked in the car and I said today is Friday Forward. That's how I felt about Dolomite. Dolomite Is My Name. Keep moving forward. Don't worry about what other people think. Some of us are designed to do whatever people tell us to do, and some of us are designed to tell yourself what to do. When you have that thought, and I also think he valued people that some of us would have never valued, and what a blessing he received from it. When he went down there and sat down with them in the alley, nobody probably ever thought about talking to them ever. They gave him the material that made his career, that helped him to recreate himself. But not only did he recreate himself, he took other people with him. And I think that's what really impressed me about Dolomite, that he took other people along for the ride. He just didn't try to act like it's just me. He even brought the sister along. Sis, I see you in a funky place. Come on, I can tell that you sing. You can damn sure throw a hell of a punch. Come on, you should be singing. Then she's like, oh, I used to be a singer. Yeah, don't give up on your dreams. Hell, he made her his protege. Hell, he helped her to get her singing career back on track. That film, y'all, I think is a motivation. Now, I know some of y'all ain't into cussing or whatever. I don't really give a dang. But I feel like there's gems in this film. There's gems, and Dolomite Is My Name. There's gems in it. This is not like Bully Dynamite and stuff like that, which kind of makes fun of those kind of, I guess, Dolomite or whatever. But this film had messages all through it, because this is based on a man's life. This is based on a man's life. He talked about he came from nothing and people thought he was nothing, and he went and made something, not just of himself, but he took people along for the ride. The brother that could sing, the brother that did set design, the brother that was good with the money. Like, he figured out, to me, that was brilliant. But I always remember black folks being in environments like that anyway, especially post-crack. Pre-crack. Before the crack came, I remember black folks being able to, we made our way in what we had. So, family, if you haven't seen Dolomite Is My Name, please check it out. I think you will be pleasantly surprised. And with that said, family, y'all have a good night. Peace.